Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and in today's video we have my Game Week 34 team selection. The free hit chip is active and I'm going to show you guys how my final draft is looking. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, please do drop a like, please do subscribe as well, and let's get on with the video. So before we start on the free hit draft, I do have to make a bit of an announcement, and that is that for Game Week 34, unfortunately there will be no deadline stream. I will be on a holiday in Japan. So basically taking a bit of a break. I don't think I'll be able to stream there. So this should be the last piece of content. If there are any changes to the free hit draft, I will keep you guys updated on Instagram, or if you still like to ask me your questions just before the deadline, I will be always active on the Telegram group chat just above me here. You can scan the QR code or join with the first link in the description to reach me there. Alright, so let's get started with the draft. And I think in general, when I was making all the different permutations of drafts that I've gone through this week, I feel like this is one of those weeks where it's a little bit different from previous seasons, where free hitting in the blank game week, you usually only have about 4 to 5 fixtures and you can't go too different in the different categories of players, whether it's defenders, midfielders or forwards. But what I'd say for this season in Game Week 34 is that there's still quite a significant chunk of fixtures and also a good number of assets that we can consider for the different categories of players. So I do feel like this is a week that, it could really kind of make it or break it. It's going to see quite a number of big swings, right? So starting off with an overall big picture of the draft right now, I would say that there will have to be trade-offs in different areas. I would say also that the way I set out making this draft is basically looking at the fixtures and seeing where I'm comfortable tripling up on certain teams, where I think the goals will be, and therefore prioritizing the attackers there and then filling in the defenders after that. So these defenders, as well as the goalkeeper that you see here on the screen, is really an afterthought of after I've kind of filled in my favorite attackers or the best 7 attackers that I want to field in my starting 11, then I fill in the defenders from here. So a bit of a thinking behind these defenders also is that I'm not really keen on doubling up on a certain team, whether it's going for Ait Nuri and Jose Sa in goal, for example, to get that Leicester at home fixture for Wolves with double defense, or maybe going double Newcastle defense, Shah and Pope, for example. I am not so keen. Or even maybe going for Robinson in defense, right? And doubling up on Fulham against Southampton away. I just feel like if this is a week where I kind of want to get a good number of points, I don't feel like I want to double up on a certain defense. And I do feel like diversifying the options is where I'm going for. So that's the thinking behind going for different defenses in all of these 4 defenders. I have Leno here to capitalize on the Southampton away fixture. I have Fabian Shah here, Ipswich at home. And then Ait Nuri here, Leicester at home. The last player is obviously Trent, with probably a slightly trickier fixture, Tottenham at home. But I think right now, the way that Trent has just come back from injury and also the impact that he had in that last game, also the significance of this Tottenham game here where Liverpool could very well win the league at Anfield. I think this is an opportunity that Slot would definitely want to field the strongest Liverpool 11, which Trent is obviously a part of, and he could very well get goals there. Spurs also are a team that are conceding a lot of goals. Trent could pop up with an assist or a goal himself, and either ways, I don't think Tottenham are very good in the attacking sense as well, so clean sheet is not out of the possibilities for Trent. So aside from that, going for Fabian Shah here, as I've said just now, is an afterthought. I looked at the Newcastle and Ipswich fixture, and I do feel like that's where there's going to be loads of goals. But then again, I also cannot ascertain whether it's Murphy or Barnes that's going to play. So later on, you'll see which one I've gone for. Isak is definitely a mainstay. So with 2 attackers, I think the next most natural option is for me to go for Fabian Shah as the third Newcastle asset, right? So that's kind of how I've set this draft up as well. In terms of Wolves asset, I like the Leicester fixture. I don't feel like I need to double up on Wolves attack, so that's why I think there's space also for Ait Nuri, who in his own right is also a very attacking defender. He could come away with a double-digit haul here, and then Leno against Southampton away, I fancy that fixture too. So there we go with defenders. Enough waffling. Let's take a look at the midfielders. So in midfield, I have Brian Mbeumo, Luis Diaz, Salah, and Harvey Barnes. So one look, and I think you already see there's double Liverpool attack here. Salah was obviously going to be a part of this draft and is likely going to be the captain as well. But for Luis Diaz here, he's played 90 minutes in the past few games. I'm pretty confident he starts as well. Again, going with a similar thinking that Slot is going to want to field the strongest 11. Luis Diaz is definitely a part of that. I think he's definitely ahead of the pecking order as compared to Gakpo or Jota. And even in a case where, for example, in the 60th to 70th minute, usually they make a sub for an attacker. Jota is the one that usually comes off. Luis Diaz moves to the number 9 spot. So either way, I'm confident of his minutes. And again, with the significance of this game and how I think there's going to be loads of goals for Liverpool here, which is my prediction, I want a piece of that in Luis Diaz and Mo Salah. So simple enough for double Liverpool attack here. And in terms of Brian Mbeumo, this is obviously a little bit of reaction or knee-jerk reaction to what we saw Brian Mbeumo do against Brighton over the weekend. I do think like Brentford are a team recently that have been going slightly under the radar. Those of you guys who went for Wissa and Mbeumo, I've seen some bench boosts in gameweek 33 with Mbeumo and Wissa on the bench. You guys did really, really well. I do think like because this is a Nottingham Forest away fixture and Nottingham Forest themselves are actually chasing for Champions League positions, I'm a little bit uncertain as to whether I'm fully comfortable going with Mbeumo here. He does make the draft because in his own right and also with Brentford's form, coupled with the fact that Nottingham Forest technically in terms of expected goals conceded have not been doing particularly well of late, I don't see it being out of the possibilities that Mbeumo gets a return here. And obviously he has those other things like him being on penalties and stuff like that. So for now, Mbeumo is here. He's not someone that I'm definitely going to have. I think he's one of those positions where I'm thinking maybe I should swap out for maybe a Kluivert or even an Anthony Elanga, for example. This is definitely a spot that could change, but for now, Mbeumo is in here. There's also Harvey Barnes here against Ipswich at home. This is where you see I made a decision as to whether I want to go for Jacob Murphy or Harvey Barnes. With the form that Barnes is in right now, I do feel like it's a little bit hard to bench him. That said, it is definitely a bit of a gamble that I'm taking here by going for Barnes. It is also a spot I'm a little bit uncertain about because obviously there are more safe options, such as Kluivert that I mentioned just now, playing against Manchester United, and he's on penalties. He probably is going to get 90 minutes if he's fit as well. But I think the upside here is really Ipswich, this fixture here, where I think Newcastle, again, chasing the Champions League positions, are really going to go all out. And I expect goals in this game. I do want a piece of that. And I don't want to be in a case where just because I can't ascertain the minutes for Murphy or Barnes that I entirely omit either one of them. So for now, I'm siding Barnes a little bit because I think he's the one that is slightly ahead. If in fact, in the previous game, when Newcastle made an attacking change to bring Anthony Gordon in, it was Barnes that moved over to the right. And Jacob Murphy was the one that gave way for Anthony Gordon. Could it be the case that maybe Murphy and Barnes both start? It is definitely possible. And Anthony Gordon starts on the bench again. But I do feel like there's also a possibility that Eddie Howe or Jason Tyndall reacts to that loss against Aston Villa by making an attacking change and bring Anthony Gordon in. Sometimes managers do that just to inject a little bit of different levels of play once they've kind of had a defeat. So I do feel like Harvey Barnes is a player that right now I'm comfortable enough going for. Will he make the final draft? I don't know for certain, but I do feel like at this point, I think there will be goals there. I'm comfortable enough to have Harvey Barnes for now. So up front to complete the draft, it's Alexander Isak, Strand Larsen, and Chris Wood. So Isak was always going to be in the draft for me. Ipswich at home, again, is a fixture I expect goals in. Isak is on penalties as well. I do have to admit, though, that Alexander Isak has been quietly stinking it up a little bit, and that has kind of driven some people to even consider going without him on your free hit in Game Week 34. I've seen some drafts going around on X without Isak. As much as he has been stinking it up, I do feel like it does sound a bit absurd to me when he plays Ipswich at home and Newcastle are chasing for Champions League positions that you take Isak out of the team. I mean, he is the talisman for them, right? And I know what he's capable of, so he's definitely going to be in the draft for me. And then there's Strand Larsen here. Now, initially it was Cunha, but of late this week, I've seen a couple of tweets going around, and also Fabrizio Romano has also tweeted about it to basically say that Matthias Cunha is very strongly linked to a lot of other clubs that are inquiring about him. He's almost definitely going to move away from Wolves, and I think there's really no incentive for Vitor Pereira to just kind of play a player like Cunha if they aren't really kind of chasing anything. They're pretty much guaranteed to stay in the league. The bottom three are likely going to be Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester, and there's quite a bit of a gap between Wolves and those bottom three teams, so I don't think there's any kind of push to have to play Cunha. And there's also talk among the Wolves forums that if Bellegarde is back, that Bellegarde would be the one that would play ahead of Cunha. So I'm not super confident of Cunha's minutes. I do have to say, of course, that Strand Larsen is at least guaranteed 90 minutes. He's the player that they've been playing in the number 9 spot for sure. So whether or not Cunha plays, at the minimum, I'm guaranteed to get a start from Strand Larsen, who in his own right as well, of late has been scoring loads of goals. In Cunha's absence, he is the one that has risen and provided the goals for Wolves. So I'm happy enough to have Strand Larsen here. Could it be Cunha if we get some news that Cunha is going to start, or if we know that Bellegarde isn't really fully fit yet? It could be. Right, so that's for the Wolves spot. I definitely am going to have a Wolves forward here because, again, the Leicester fixture is just too good to ignore. And then the last forward is Chris Wood against Brentford at home. Now, this is a bit of a play on a team that I feel is trying to challenge for Champions League positions. I mean, definitely they are going to try to push for it. They have been kind of dropping points of late, Nottingham Forest, but they are coming off a 2-1 win against Spurs. That said, this is a spot that initially I had for Raul Jimenez, right? This is a spot that I strongly considered a Fulham forward because of the Southampton away fixture. But what I'll say also is that Muniz in the last game wasn't even in the squad. He is having a bit of a knock right now. Does that mean that Raul Jimenez is definitely going to start? I think you'd say it's more likely, but if you get news that Muniz is back, then, again, we don't really know who's going to start. And also, it's not as if Raul Jimenez has been tearing it up, because recently, before the knock to Muniz, he was the one that's been starting most games, right? So Raul Jimenez could be a bit cold as well. So I do feel Chris Wood, obviously coming off a goal in gameweek 33, but also that they are chasing this Champions League spots. I think Brentford at home is a decent enough game for Chris Wood here, and he's again on penalty. So this is the first 11 that I've gone for here. Definitely gone through lots of iterations to get to this point, but overall, when I look at the team, I'm pretty happy with the players that I have. I have a good number of penalty takers. I also have some decent differentials here in players that I don't think many people would go for. I don't think Diaz is someone that a lot will be going for. Even, double Newcastle attack. Like Barnes is someone that I've seen some people ignore. I'm choosing to go for either one of Barnes or Murphy to still capitalize on their fixture. Up front, I have Chris Wood. Maybe some people are prioritizing Fulham assets ahead of him. And then Brian Mbeumo as well. Now, let's speak about the bench, because this is where I do feel like some of those players on the bench could very well find themselves in the starting 11 for me, if I do decide to swap it. So basically, I'll speak about the goalkeeper first. Sanchez against Everton at home. Based on the market odds, actually, Chelsea do have a decent enough chance of getting a clean sheet against Everton. I think partly due to the fact that Chelsea are also one of those teams pushing for Champions League positions. Defensively, Chelsea just have been very suspect for me. It's completely possible that Sanchez makes a mistake and then they concede, or even one of those defenders that we have at the moment that could leak goals. So it's not a case where I think clean sheets is definitely going to be in store for Chelsea, but the odds are there, and this is basically a clean sheet odds play. And also, I don't really have other Chelsea assets, so I'm fine to just have a bit of coverage here for Sanchez if Leno is missing out. And then there's first on the bench, Kluivert. Now, Kluivert is really a player that I'm quite keen on actually finding space for in my starting 11, because Bournemouth, again, are one of those teams chasing for Europe. Maybe not necessarily Champions League. It could be a little bit too far away from them. We'll see what happens. But Europa League is on the cards for them, and I think overall Europe is a prospect that would kind of entice them to try to go all out. Also, the fact that Manchester United are kind of on the opposite spectrum, where Amorim has very clearly said that they're going to prioritize their European ambitions right now. They are in the semi-finals of the Europa League, and very clearly they're going to prioritize that. So a weaker Manchester United squad playing Bournemouth away from home, you could definitely see Kluivert capitalizing on that and getting some goals. He does obviously not have a lot of minutes under his belt recently because he's just come back from injury, but all the things that come with Kluivert, the quality that he possesses, the role that he plays in the team, and also him being on penalties is worthy of consideration to put him in the starting 11. I am strongly considering it. And then there's Sessegnon. Now, he's literally playing right wing, but he's listed as a defender. And so I honestly do feel like this is one of those players that could find his way into my starting 11, but that would mean that I double up on the Fulham defense, which again, I've said I'm not really keen on doubling up on a particular defense. In fact, if I do bring Sessegnon into the team, then maybe I swap out Leno for another goalkeeper with good fixtures, right? So it is one of those options for me, but Sessegnon I think is a pretty good option. There are concerns about his minutes for sure. I think some people have alluded to the fact that maybe Willian could come in, or Sessegnon is basically not a guaranteed starter. So if you do still want some Fulham coverage, if you are keen on getting some Fulham defenders for the Southampton away game, I think for me, if you want to guarantee minutes, it's Leno or Robinson. If a bit of a differential, then Sessegnon is the one. And then last on the bench is Kirkes. Again, a play on that Bournemouth kind of chasing the Champions League or Europa League and playing against a weakened Manchester United squad. So for me, I'd say overall, these 15 players are for me the pick of the bunch. If they're not in my starting 11, it does not mean that they can't come into the team. They are still in my considerations. But overall, these are kind of the 15 players I've landed on. Have I missed out on some players? For sure, there are trade-offs that we have to make. I could, if possible. Honestly, if I could play a 2-3-5, for example, I would honestly do that. But obviously, we can't play those kind of formations. All-out attack used to be a thing. There are chips like that previously, but now it's just not an option. But yeah, basically, besides that, I do feel like trade-offs have to be made. So these are the kind of starting 11 players I've gone for. Let me know what you think of my draft in the comments down below. I apologize if I've rambled on a little bit. I wanted to cover as much as I could because there will be no deadline stream for Game Week 34. If you have any further questions, I'll try to reply them in the comments. If not, you can find me in the Telegram group chat where I'm very active. And I will also be posting my final draft for Game Week 34 on Instagram as well. So follow me on all socials if you're interested. If not, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do drop a like. Please do subscribe. And I will wish you all the best for Game Week 34. I'll see you again for Game Week 35 content. Bye-bye.